Welcome back to my channel. In December, I said I would do a video to focus on what may look like a channel is buying views or subscribers. Speaking for myself, I really don't care much if people want to waste their money on such purchases. Pretty much everything I've seen from people testing this has said it is a net loss. The only exceptions are from people who said that buying enough subs to reach 1,000 seems to make people view their channel as crossing a threshold of being worthy. Thus, they found it easier to better gain real subscribers after that. But others, such as the Philippine Antics channel, will criticize some vloggers, claiming their views must have been bought. They base this on the ratio of views to subscribers and saying it is higher than what is possible. The claims often seem like just another tactic to attack a channel for something that, even if true, usually doesn't matter much. As usual, there are lots of assumptions going on, also a lot of absolutism, where they insist the numbers can't be higher than some number they ascribe to. So let's get into the boring numbers. Just think of this video as a one-time resource you can use to debunk wild accusations. A fairly recent example was from the Philippine Antics channel.
If you're getting 2 to 5% right now, you're lucky. The algorithm is tanked.
Antics likes to say they know how these things work because they have a YouTube manager. Well, it's easy to find people who say their manager was worthless. Also, I had dealings with a YouTube official when trying to get some basic information, and what they told me was completely wrong. And I have to wonder how often human nature kicks in and a manager just tells you what he knows you want to hear. If you are worried about how your mediocre channel is doing compared to some other channel, it's just easier to say the other channel is probably buying views and subs. But regardless, is it really lucky to be in the 2 to 5% range? And are they talking about total views or just views from subscribers? I'll assume it is total views unless they clarify, because they have no way to actually know the subscriber views. I may also point out cases where I'm not sure what they meant. Here's a theoretical example. If a channel has 500,000 subscribers, then the 2 to 5% for total views would be 10 to 25,000 views. However, if Heidi is only referring to views from subscribers, the real total could easily be 5 times higher. I checked these things with Google's AI because Google owns YouTube. It doesn't agree with Heidi. The key part says a 20% view to subscriber ratio is often considered a very good engagement rate, especially for larger channels. That's very good, not excellent, not fantastic, or other superlatives. So it isn't a limiting figure. As a result, that 500,000 subscriber channel can easily be getting far more than 100,000 views legitimately. And what if Heidi was only talking about the percent of views that are actually from subscribers? Well, then we look at this from Google. For most videos and channels, the majority of views come from non-subscribers. A common range discussed among creators for the percentage of views that come from subscribers is often 5% to 20%. More math. Using the 500 subscriber channel again, Google's 20% total figure says 100,000 views is fine. But if views from actual subscribers is often between 5 and 20% of the total views, then the subscriber portion of that 100,000 would often just be 5 to 20,000. And that is only 1 to 4% of all subscribers. And also very close to the 2 to 5% Heidi started with. So I wonder if that is what she really meant. This is why clarity is so important. But back to Google's AI. Remember that total views were not limited to 20%. Google says higher percentages, e.g. 20% or more, can be seen on videos from smaller, highly niched, or extremely loyal fan-based channels. P's channel is certainly fairly niched. There's also a very good chance her fan base is more loyal than most, based on what P does. After all, P replies to a great many of the thousands of comments she can get on a video, and not just repeating the same generic stuff other channels do. People appreciate that. Then there are the many videos P posts on her Patreon channel, as well as P responding pretty much every day in her Patreon chat rooms. Compare that to Antics. I checked in mid-December, and their most recent posting on Patreon was already 42 days old and still counting. And even going back to November 19th of 2024, there were only 4 days they posted in almost 13 months. Antics also doesn't seem to have chat rooms, so there is good reason for P's followers to be far more loyal than most. Here's more elaboration from Antics, which also shows the inconsistencies with their own numbers.
When numbers outweigh their subscribers almost on a daily basis, there's no way.
If the numbers are always consistent to a ratio to their viewers, unless it's 10% or 5% of its viewers, then there's something wrong.
Yeah, nobody gets above.
Notice the significantly different numbers. First, we were told 2 to 5% is lucky. Now we see 5 to 10% from George, neither of which matches what Google said. Also note that, once again, we get this absolutist argument that there's no way and nobody gets above. There are many millions of YouTubers, but nobody gets above those numbers? Google's AI doesn't seem to agree. We can look at some other info from Google's AI. For example, this one says mid-tier channels like P's get 8 to 15% of the subscriber numbers in total views. It's less than the 20% it said earlier, which is one reason I never just accept any number as being absolute, but still well above what George and Heidi said. It describes this as a healthy range, not a hard limit, and a label of healthy doesn't imply anything like a top-end number. So don't be surprised to see higher percentages of total views to subscriber numbers. It's not limited to the previous claim of 2 to 5 or 5 to 10 or even the 20% number. I also asked Google's AI about P's channel in particular. It says P typically gets a percentage of 17.1% of her subscribers for her total views. That's over 75,000 views. Sometimes P exceeds that, and sometimes she is far below that. It calls this percentage excellent, which, again, doesn't imply that is a limit. Google goes on to say it shows high audience loyalty and strong niche content, which I pointed out. I also calculated Philippine Antics live streams by taking 14 consecutive releases, all more than a week old, so they had time to accumulate most of their views. Their percentage turned out to be 4.7%. That happens to be fairly in line with what Google says for live streams, and Google also says live streams tend to get a much smaller percentage than regular videos. But you can't compare that to P because P doesn't even make live streams. I've already pointed out some of the things P does which would justify higher percentages. But what does Antics do?
We have fair thumbnails, fair titles, fair content.
Well, looking at the thumbnails for those 14 videos I checked, 4 of them have no thumbnail at all except for a random image from the stream that YouTube would default to if you don't create one yourself. That hardly counts as a fair thumbnail. Titles are tougher to rate, but they sound much like other gossipy channels. As for their content, sure, you can find some useful information buried somewhere in a 2 or 3 hour video, but it is heavy on gossip and assumptions, doing a lot of meaningless attacks on other channels. So why should they be surprised that P gets a much higher percentage of views? More from Heidi.
We're not claiming our footage and editing's any good, but people with shitty content, no editing, and shit thumbnails with no titles can get 100,000 views with no problem. It doesn't mean it's because they're good.
Well, there are lots of channels that I don't understand why they are popular, but they get lots of views anyway. But why care about what others like? For example, one of Heidi's targets has been Joe Go Wonder. At least I think it is, because every time Heidi refers to it, she butchers the name. She doesn't seem to think his numbers are legitimate. Maybe they aren't, or maybe Heidi is just wrong again. but I spot checked a few of his videos, and yes, I was bored to death by the ones I saw. All of them are what I call diary videos. That's when most of the video consists of the vlogger and maybe their partner just going about their day. I do not understand why people like that kind of video, but I don't have to. There are lots of people who seem to love this style in various channels. And, at least in the parts I watched, he wasn't hurting anyone else. So why should I care about him at all? It simply isn't a channel I'd watch. I'm certainly not jealous of him. It's much like those who mostly do live streams. I find those to almost always be a huge waste of time, yet get lots of views. Maybe they like the fact that while the stream is going on, they can comment in the chat window. And maybe they are hoping to get a shout out. I don't care about such things. However, I certainly don't object to people choosing to do them or people liking them. As long as vloggers don't behave badly, I don't care what format they prefer to use. Anyway, in summary, Heidi and George's claims for what the percentage of views to subscribers should be is not only not supported by Google, who owns YouTube, but they keep making the same mistakes about applying absolutes when there isn't one. Thanks for watching, and don't let the trolls stop you from speaking out.